everyone. Today we are going to be cooking the recipe of pasta, or as some people may call it, spaghetti. So I have already gotten all of my things out for cooking according to the recipe. So I have my spaghetti, my sauce, I also have my pot of water, my colander, my bowl and fork, and the recipe called for another item, but that is not something that we typically use here in our country, so we're just going to use a pot to boil the water on this stove. So we're going to get started with that first. So let me show you what we're going to be doing over here first. Remember that, especially when we're using hot appliances like this, that we are going to be using supervision when we're cooking. And then we're going to get our water boiling first. So you can see that my pot is on the front burner on the right side. So I'm going to show you the knobs over here. So I want to look at the pictures that are on the burner knobs. Sometimes it's a picture, sometimes it's words. So this one is showing the right back burner. That's not the one that I'm going to use because that shows this burner right here. I'm going to use the other burner, which is the right front burner. The front one is the one all the way at the bottom because that's the one closest to you right here. Okay? So I'm going to use the front right burner right here, and I'm going to turn that to high because I want the water to boil. Okay, and so while the water is boiling over here, we're going to do a little bit of practice with some of our measuring first, okay? All right, so let me get this set back up here. Okay, and I'm going to stay close to my stove so that I can watch for when it starts to boil and we can move on with our recipe. Okay, so I'm going to have you guys answer some questions in the chat, so get ready to use your typing fingers. Okay, so I'm going to show you some measurements, and I want you to type the answer in the chat using the full word. Okay, so I'm going to show you some abbreviations, and you're going to work on saying the full word in the chat. Okay, so we first have a measuring cup. Okay, measuring cup usually has the milliliters for liquid over here, which we don't typically use too much in our country. But it also has the cup measurements right over here, and if the whole thing is full, we can see right here, and let me show you with a little bit of contrast here, that the top measuring line is 1 cup. Okay, so if I only fill it halfway, what would that measurement be? So go ahead and type your answer in the chat. If it's 1 cup for the whole thing, what would halfway be? What is that measurement? Okay, good. Okay, here's your next one. These are dry measuring cups. Remember, we use these for dry products like flour or sugar, things like that we're using for baking, or even just dry ingredients that we're measuring out. So typically, we like to use measuring cups that have the labels on them, and sometimes when we use plastic measuring cups, the labels might run off or get wiped off somehow. So that's what happened to mine. So I went and purchased some new ones that are metal because these ones will never rub off. So I'm using some measuring cups that have the numbers and letters engraved into the metal so it'll never wash off. Okay, so I'm going to pull one out. So this is our largest one, and it is 1 cup, if you can see that measurement there. All right, 1 cup for that big one, okay? So if I were to use another measuring cup and compare it, this is about half of that amount. So again, just like with the wet measuring cup, what would this halfway point be called if I'm using this measuring cup that's half of the size of the large one? Okay, so here's the measuring amount right here. All right, so type that in the chat. Okay, so we're going to look closely again. Now we have 1 tablespoon. So this is our large tablespoon, not a teaspoon. So the tablespoon has the large T on it, okay? When we're writing the abbreviations. Okay, then we have 1 teaspoon. So which is bigger? 1 tablespoon or 1 teaspoon? Tablespoon or teaspoon? Write it in the chat. Which one is bigger? Okay. And again, we have our our full teaspoon right here. Okay. And then if we take half of that, so look at the sizes. Here's our full teaspoon. Here's our half teaspoon. Okay. So if we have a full teaspoon and we're only using half of that, what is the measurement for that? All right. Good job, guys. Thanks for participating in the measurements. We'll talk a little bit more about those when we're done with the cooking video. Okay, it looks like my water is almost ready. It's starting to have the bubbles down at the bottom that are going to start working their way up to the top. So I'm going to look at my spaghetti and read the packaging on the back. So the packaging says to boil and add salt. Okay, so I'm going to just add a little bit of salt. Now some people may not enjoy salt, and if you don't, that's fine. You can skip that step, but salt helps to bring out the natural flavors of things. So we're going to go ahead and use the salt, okay? Then we're going to add pasta. So I don't want to use this whole entire package, and it gives me a little chart here. So I'm going to follow the chart, okay? And I think I want to use 1/4 of the package, so 1/4 of the package. So what is the cook time for 1/4 of the package? Okay. So I'm going to get my spaghetti out and ready to go. Didn't quite open that wide enough, so let me open it just a little bit more. There we go. That's about as much as I want to use today. I'm going to put the rest back in my container so it doesn't spill. And I'm going to go ahead and cut this in half before I put it in, so that way it makes it a little bit easier to eat later. So I'm just going to break it in half like Mighty Hercules. Just like that. Now I have 2 stacks. Okay, and when I put it in, I'm going to be careful not to touch the pot because it's hot. And I'm also going to be careful not to touch the water. Okay, I don't want to just throw it in though, because that could make the water splash. So I want to keep my hands above the water, but put it in gently. Okay, so just holding it above. Let's get you a closer look here. Above the water, and then just drop it in gently. Okay, and it's okay if you have a couple little ones on the outside that fell. We'll clean that up later once the stove is cooled off. We don't want to touch it when it's hot. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and turn the stove down just a little bit so it's not so hot. And I'm going to set my timer. I'm going to use the timer right up here on the microwave because that's easiest for me. Push timer. And what did the package say? I believe it said 9 to 11 minutes. So if we like it al dente, which is a little more firm, then we'll put 9 minutes. If we like it a little more tender, we can do 11 minutes. Typically I like mine a little bit in between, not firm but not too tender. So I'm going to go with 10 minutes. And start my timer. So when that timer goes off, I know that the pasta will be ready. Okay? So as you can see, I have my pasta spoon ready right next to the pot so that I can stir that every now and then so the spaghetti doesn't stick together. Okay, so we'll go ahead and give it a quick stir right now. Make sure it's not sticking together. And I'm going to go ahead and use my spoon rest here to rest my spaghetti spoon on there. Alright, so while that is cooking, I'm going to go ahead and put away my spaghetti that I'm not using anymore. Keep that fresh in the container there so next time I'm ready to use it, it's ready to go. Okay, so I'll go put that away. Oh, I forgot to show you guys. Remember we were talking about organizing our pantry and using some of these containers to put our products into it. So I got these cute little labels that I purchased on Amazon, and added these to my containers yesterday. So I'm still in the process of finishing my organization system, but it's looking pretty good so far. I'll show you guys a picture of it when it's all done. Okay, have you ever heard of the expression, "a watched pot never boils"? That means that if we're just constantly watching it, we're constantly staring at it, it seems like it takes much longer for the water to actually boil. It really doesn't take longer, but it feels like it does because we're staring at it impatiently. So sometimes what we do is we try to make our minds busy in the meantime, but we don't want to walk away and forget about our pasta boiling on the stove. What would happen if we walked away, left the pasta boiling on the stove, and forgot about it? What do you think would happen? Type in the chat. What could happen to that spaghetti or the pasta, whatever pasta you're making? What could happen to it? I'll give you some time to think about that and then type it in the chat. Hopefully you guys came up with some good answers there in the chat. We always want to make sure that we're safe in our kitchen, okay? So always stay close to where you're cooking so that you don't forget about things. Okay, let's do a little bit more measuring practice. Okay, sometimes we see this measurement and we don't quite know how to say it or how to read it. Okay, all right, so here is the measurement right here. Okay, so let's read that together. 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, so we don't know how to say this number sometimes. So there's a couple of ways we could say this number. So remember how we had our large teaspoon like this. That was 1 whole teaspoon, okay? Then we went to the next size down, and that is our 1/2 teaspoon, okay? So if you think about cutting something in half, that's what this would be. Then if we take this one and we cut it in half again, now we have this little guy, okay? So we took this one and cut it in half again. So think about if you had a pizza, you cut the pizza in half, now you have this one. Then you cut that one, that's already half of the pizza, and you cut it again, now it's 1/4 of a pizza, okay? So we can say this number as 1/4 with a TH at the end. Another way of saying it is 1 teaspoon, 1/2 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon. Okay, so let's think about our pizza again. If this is a whole pizza, this is half pizza, and you take that half and cut it in half again, it's a 1/4 pizza, just like a clock. If you have a 1/4 of an hour, it's 1/4 of an hour. Okay, so we're relating some of those words together. 1 whole, 1/2, 1/4. Okay, all right, so I'm going to check my spaghetti and give it another quick little stir so we can Make sure those noodles don't stick too much together. Okay, what do you guys think this colander is for? What are we going to use a colander for with our recipe today? Type in the chat if you know what this is used for. Alright, I'm actually going to move my colander over to the sink to get it ready for our pasta. Okay, we have our spaghetti sauce here. In our recipe, it said that we can just put the sauce right on top of our pasta when we're done straining it. Some people like to add things into their pasta sauce. Some things that might be like meat, whether it's ground beef, ground turkey, or sausage. And then other people like to put vegetables in there to make it a little bit stronger of a nutritional factor. So some people like to put onions in there, tomatoes, bell peppers, zucchini, sometimes carrots. Just depends on what kind of flavors you like in your vegetables. For today's recipe, we're just going to keep it simple and just use the sauce. So I got a traditional sweet basil sauce, so that way it has a little bit of an herby taste to it, which I like and my family likes. So oftentimes I do add a lot of other things into my sauce when I'm making pasta at home, but today we're just going to keep it simple, just like the recipe says. Also in the recipe, it did say that we're using pasta, and in the picture it showed some spiral pasta. So in most pasta recipes, the noodles or the pasta are interchangeable for most of them. So today I thought it would be fun to just use spaghetti, and that's something that you guys commonly eat, I'm sure. So why not stick with what we know? But you know, if you prefer the spiral pasta, you could do the penne pasta. You can even do shells. I made some shells last night for my family for a different type of pasta recipe. You can even do egg noodles. If you like elbow macaroni, you can do that as well. So there's lots of different variations of pasta you could use to go with this recipe. So when you're, oh, that's our timer. Let's stir our pasta. Check it out. Okay, so I can feel when I lift it up like this, I can feel that it's pretty tender but not mushy, and it's a good consistency. So we're gonna go ahead and turn off the stove. So we want to make sure this goes all the way to the off position. Now your stove may look a little different, so you need to make sure you're using what works for your stove. Okay. Now my handle is not hot, which is why I can touch it right now, but the pot is, so don't touch the pot. We're going to take the pasta over to the sink and put it right into the colander. So I'm going to pour it over the colander, and that allows the water to come out of the pasta. Okay, I'm going to set this down for a minute since I need 2 hands. Alright. Okay, so now once the pasta is in the colander, you want to give it a good shake to get a little bit of that extra water out. Hopefully not too much of falling out. Then we're going to pour it back into our pot. Remember, the pot is still hot and the pasta is still hot as well. Okay, so that's why we don't need to heat our sauce, because the pot and the pasta is still warm. Okay, and I can use my spaghetti spoon if there's anything kind of stuck to the edges. Well, we'll wait for that one to cool off. It's okay if we have a little spaghetti art, right? Okay, we're going to pour a little bit of our sauce in there. Now, the amount of sauce that you put into the bowl, into the pot, is up to you, whether you like it to have a lot of saucy flavor or just a little bit of saucy flavor. That's up to you. Alright, so I'm going to pour some in. Okay, so let's take a look. So that's the sauce that I poured in, and I'm going to stir it up. Now, normally I wouldn't be holding the camera in my hand, and I would have two hands free, but I'm just going to stir it up as best as I can. So that's just a little bit of sauce, so I think I'm going to put a little bit more sauce in there, get it some good flavor. Okay. So a little at a time is better than having too much that you can't get rid of. So I like to do a little at a time when I'm mixing things up. So, that looks about done. What do you guys think? I'm going to put some in my bowl. How's that look, guys? Is it making you hungry? So here's some spaghetti for you all. Some people like to add some toppings to this. My kids like Parmesan cheese and red chili flakes or chili pepper to put on top if they want to make it a little bit spicier. But I'm going to leave this the way it is right now because Noah is going to enjoy this for lunch or dinner. So he's going to add his own toppings. Alright guys, have a good day.